Hello, and welcome to Voices from the Field, a Mayford podcast where we talk with educators in the field to hear about their perspectives and experiences. My name is Jake Burson, Advocacy Chair for Mayford, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Springfield College University professors, Professor Angela Veach and Professor Ted France. Here's a little background about our guests. Angela Veach is currently the Associate Director of Springfield College's East Campus Outdoor Learning Center, the Program Director for the Masters in Adventure Education program, and an adjunct faculty member at the institution. Ted France has been a professor of physical education at Springfield College for over 30 years. He has taught classes in pedagogy, adventure education, motor learning, and qualitative research. He has published articles and book chapters, presented nationally, and consulted with physical education program and youth developmental organizations on the integration of adventure education in schools and youth development programs as well. Welcome, Professor Angela Veach and Ted France. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I usually like to ask our guest this question. What's making you smile these days?
This is like this podcast. This is all new to me, being on a podcast and trying new things and meeting students through all these new ways. I'm teaching online classes for the first time in my career, and I'm learning tons. But it's just all these new experiences I'm getting in the last year or two with this new program we started.
That's great. That's great. Welcome. How about Veach?
Yeah, I think, when spring hits, it always brings a lot of joy to see kind of the blossoming of new things, seeing the students kind of get out and about utilizing our facility, which we have, 57 acres as an outdoor laboratory for our students, and kind of seeing that come back to life. There's been, it kind of is reminiscent of hibernation. It's not utilized as much because of the colder weather.
Right.
But as soon as it starts to warm up, we start to see some of those folks resurface, and kind of benefit from the space that and kind of what it has to offer.
Absolutely. We've definitely had a long winter this past season, so
Yeah.
it's good to see spring coming finally here. So
Yeah.
so let's get started. Let's dive in. Tell our listeners how you got started on your education journey. And either one of you can go first.
Beach, you want to
Oh,
go?
you can go, Ted.
All right. So I started my journey as a physical education student at Springfield College back in the mid to late 80s. I guess what really got me started was, like a lot of us, was my involvement in sport, and a lot of good people around me who pointed me in a direction and say, "Hey, you'd be a good teacher. Give it a go." Um, and then when I got to Springfield, I guess the journey as a physical educator collided with opportunities that were provided to me at the outdoor center that Veach is at now. I came from a smaller rural town. In adventure education, the outdoors played a big role in shaping me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great opportunity where at Springfield I could try lots of new things. And then once I got there, it was just the experiences that I got from a lot of good mentors, who kept pointing me in the right direction, giving me chances to expand my horizons and be involved with a lot of cool opportunities.
That's great. Were these mentors teachers or other your friends, or who were they?
Coaches, and mostly coaches, but then eventually teachers at Springfield. Dr. Diane Potter, Gretchen Brockmeyer. A lot of these folks are retired now, but they were people who challenged me to achieve goals and to set new goals for myself and see myself in a different perspective as an educator. It was just a lot of really good opportunities.
That's fantastic. Sounds like they really were encouraging, so that's great. How about Veach? What?
Well, I did my undergraduate work at Indiana University, and I then, after that, left and was working in the mental health field. And how it started is, I guess you could say, by giving a dear friend a haircut, and I had that was my very first haircut. I was cutting his hair, And I was kind of joking around. I had started back in a graduate program, and he was telling me about his line of work. He was working for Indiana University's Bradford Woods, which is their big outdoor center. And I was like, oh, they got a job for me. And lo and behold, he was like, actually, yes, they do. So I kind of stopped my graduate work at that time and moved to that facility. And I spent 2 years there working at their outdoor center, leading some of their therapeutic groups. And then I moved on and found myself in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I did my graduate work here, and I worked at the outdoor center during my graduate work time. And I guess the cards, you could say, aligned that at that time, the former director had been offered a job that he decided to take. And I graduated on a Saturday, and I got offered the interim assistant director position on that Monday, and I haven't left.
Wow. So is it kind of safe to say you dove in there, or it was just the right opportunity, right? It looks like, I mean, you were right, you was the perfect fit. You were right there. You had so that's awesome. Can you tell us, our listeners, a little bit more about the therapeutic program? What is that, just so people can understand?
The therapeutic program at Indiana University that I was working.
You mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I oversaw any groups that with a therapeutic background are seeking kind of therapeutic services. So I did a lot. I was considered the therapeutic specialist for it, but I was utilizing the outdoors as a treatment modality to work with them.
Okay.
And so when I came to Springfield and was shown this facility, it, despite being quite far from Indiana, this space, gave me a sense of home and kind of what Bradford Woods provided me at that time.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So as a professor, is there something that's the most rewarding part? Can you put your finger on one, or are there different elements that are rewarding? Either one of you can go answer this, or both. Who wants to take this one?
For me, I mean, I think the rewarding parts are just the small victories. So you're working with students in class, and they might be planning a lesson or planning a day out at the challenge course, and they're just, what do we do, and how do we get the students involved, and are they going to like me? And it's just like getting them past all of the hesitations they have, and just reorienting them, like, let's go play, let's go have fun, and then we layer in all the educational goals that are part of the program design and that we're working for. But so those little victories, but then the big ones are thinking about some of the graduates that have left the program, and they've started their own businesses, whether it be an adventure, education. One student comes to mind, Dan Jascott, runs his own facilitation company now. And then you've got other great teachers. Christine Brayfield comes to mind out in Arlington. I mean, she's an alum of the program, and just watching her take on the challenges of, I'm going to do a snowshoeing unit with my elementary school students. And it's just a great, to me, those are the moments where I see victories every day.
That's awesome. And you mentioned the word fun, and I totally agree. Like, having the students, no matter what age, when they think the activity or know the activity is fun, it really engages them. And like you mentioned, the other stuff can come later, but they have to know that they're in a safe environment and that it's fun. You're teaching them different skills and whatnot. So that really resonates with me.
What's the old adage? There's an old adage, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt said, they don't care what you know until they know you care.
Exactly right. Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
you gotta, I think starting with that belief system that, this unwavering belief in the potential of your students, and then getting to know what really makes them tick. And then we can get to the meat of the meal. I think you got to start with them.
Right. No, that's great advice. Great advice. Thank you for sharing. How about Veach? What's the most rewarding aspect about being a professor for you?
I think seeing them accomplish things that they initially came in doubting themselves with, you know, thinking that something appeared to be impossible became extremely possible. You know, a lot of our classes we teach, you know, through an experiential lens. And so we have an opportunity to, you know, take what's we're learning in a classroom and really apply it, you know, to groups that come and visit us. And so seeing how they make those connections between the content within a classroom and a real life experience working with a group, and then understanding how that theory or concept is applicable in their future is probably one of the most rewarding. You know, seeing them, you know, in final reflections talk about their future and how this content can benefit them is really probably from my perspective quite rewarding.
So they're learning this content and then they're applying it um, right after, so it sticks with them. Can you provide our listeners with either a shorter or long example of what that might look like?
Yeah, so if you know, a facilitation class, right?
Mhm.
So you know, you're learning about some of the hard skills that are required with it, as well as the importance of, you know, sequencing or scaffolding, you know, the day to kind of build upon success. And so we host a variety of external groups out at our facility,
Mhm.
and they can come out and we have our students work with some of our other student facilitators who have gone through it. So it's kind of actually a really neat, um, I don't know, mentorship that's taken place.
Mm.
And so they work with maybe an individual that is already on our staff, and then they deliver kind of the activity or the activities for the day. And so it's not just learning without any participants. You know, they're, again, like I said, they understand how to integrate some of these soft skills with a group, which are, you know, the dynamics alone
Mm.
uh, create opportunities that you can't teach in the classroom, right? Like you've got to be present in, you know, like actively engaged to kind of see some of these things come to life.
Right.
So they're able to create those connections.
So listening, taking turns, reflecting, offering feedback, those type of things.
All of those things, you
Perfect.
know.
Perfect. That's really great. So moving on to our next question, it's kind of related. How do you ensure that adventure ed is inclusive and safe for everybody? I know you kind of mentioned that, you know, them taking turns and listening, but how do you ensure that everyone's included? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 Angela, you want to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, experiential education, you know, the foundation of it is built on, you know, some of the things that allow it to just naturally occur, right? So building, you know, these environments through intentional planning and kind of giving, you know, the students that insight of the importance of offering choice, the importance of, you know, empowering their, you know, the participants to use their voice. You know, it's founded on challenge by choice.
I was just
And
gonna ask
so
about that. Yeah.
yeah, so not, you know, forcing anyone to ever, you know, do something that they're not comfortable with, but kind of finding a role within the group that they think kind of meets them where they're at or where they feel most comfortable with. So I think that the the foundation of it is lends itself far more easily than other I guess theoretical frameworks and so forth.
Well, when you mentioning this, you kind of remind me of UDL, Universal Design for Learning, where there's options for them to not only show what they know, but who they work with, some choice on maybe the equipment they use, where they're going to stand, all those type of things. So that's really great. Anything to add, Ted, or
I would only take away from whatever she said.
Well, that's great. So what are some specific? I know this might be sound competitive, but can you give an example of a specific way that students have participated? Like maybe take us through, you mentioned earlier, you have people coming onto your campus that are kind of new to this. How does that whole process work? And are they working with partners or trios? Just take us through an example of that.
So I'll let Veach talk more about the external groups that come on.
Yep.
I can talk about, for me, working with our undergraduates is
Hmm.
a similar process as working with an external group.
Got it.
So in the end of the school year, this May, we've been teaching a camping class for about 90 plus years. And I live out in the woods in a tent for 8 days with about 50 or 60 first year students.
Wow.
And my staff is made up of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so when you ask about like how do they work, well, the students that are enrolled in the class, they'll live in a group of 7 or 8 people, and they have to define roles. They have to, deal with the weather whatever is thrown at us. They take
Hmm.
classes during the day. The whole premise behind it is that they're gaining skills in the outdoor physical skills, but they're also learning to become more aware of how they're influencing other people, how they're building relationships. And then the students who are actually staff members living in the group, they've come through some of the methods classes. And so they're learning to teach under me, working with me in teaching the classes I teach, or working with Michelle Moosbrugger out on the ropes course, on the challenge course. So there's this mentoring process where we're always trying to help somebody become more autonomous in the delivery of their own teaching. We don't want them all to look like Angelo at the end of the 4 years. We want them to become their own best teacher as
Right.
well. So, I think they're working in a lot of groups. Some of the younger groups that I dealt with the elementary level, yeah, it's going to be more pairs, maybe groups of 3, but the high school groups tend to be more 8 to 12, larger groups, things like that. Angela,
Okay.
what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with everything that you said. I think that part of, um, that engagement is, again, Springfield College is rather unique in that space because we have 57 acres of forestry that is an outdoor laboratory
Hmm.
and has a long-standing history of having this space be an opportunity for students to engage in, to apply that content from the classroom, like we said. So whether that's, in Ted's example of, an actual class that, former students now become the teachers, whether that's, folks taking the challenge course class and working on the challenge course, whether that's some other undergraduate classes helping support some spring break programming for youth in the area. Like there's a lot of opportunity in
Hmm.
a very safe, like we try to make sure that they are supportive in a safe space to take that risk, that just enhances their overall knowledge of how to be a better educator, how to connect more, how to, navigate being adaptable and in a outdoor setting.
Hmm.
You know, it's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
interesting.
Give it.
Something that Veach just said is,
Hmm.
when I think about the program and a lot of the experiences, an individual will take on individual responsibilities as a teacher would or a coach would,
Hmm.
but their work is always supported by a group, whether it be a group of peers, the faculty members, that are guiding them and mentoring them. So I don't think so. I'd love for you to ask this question to our students, because I'd love to see how they perceive, like, how do they learn? Do they learn in groups or do they learn alone? Because they take on a lot of individual challenges when they're standing up there alone teaching
Hmm.
their class.
Hmm.
But I think they would describe the process of learning as a group process,
Hmm. Interesting. Well,
because they're supported in so many ways.
interesting. We can make that happen, Ted. We can ask your students that question, have them back on another podcast. But that is interesting what you said about how they are supported in different ways. Um, let's shift gears a little bit. Thank you both for that answer. It really painted a nice picture, I think, for me and for our listeners. What type of research is conducted in your field? Have you, I understand you've written books, articles. What type of, is this qualitative, quantitative research? Enlighten me. How does
Yeah,
it?
I think the majority of the research in adventure education and in whether it's in physical education, youth development through sport,
Mhm.
uh, in recreation, you'll find quantitative and qualitative publications, things like that. My career has been really different. I've been blessed to be at Springfield for quite a while, and there was an author, a researcher named Ernie Boyer,
Mhm.
who wrote a book called Scholarship Reconsidered, and he made the academy step back and say, who are we really doing research for? Why are you doing this research? And for me, if I want to have impact and if I want to serve my community, I should, how do I take what I know and not only study it, but study it in very applied ways?
Mm.
So for me, lots of times my research is founded on, all right, how do I help other organizations get grants and then build programs together where I'm not an expert consultant, but I'm a process consultant, that I'm sort of basing my research and my interests on what are the real needs of people and organizations.
Mhm.
How do I help them shift what they're doing or support what the good work they're doing by helping them get grant funding or maybe doing evaluation and assessment with them? That, I'm sort of, my research tends to be very applied, whether it's working with a program like the First Tee, or a YMCA or a public school, on curriculum. It's just, to me, that's where I find I can have the greatest impact.
You mentioned first tee. Is that the golf?
Yeah.
Is that the golf? Yeah, in one of my prior districts, we had first tee come and they gave us some equipment. It's great. So you're one of the people that help them develop that or work with them.
I helped write that curriculum. Yeah.
That's
So you
awesome.
probably
We
got a
love that.
curriculum guide.
Yeah, we love that curriculum. So that's interesting. You mentioned about talking about the process and really working with other folks and other people. So that's really interesting. How about Veach? Anything to add?
I'll
Thoughts
let
on?
Ted have that.
All right, no, no problem. All right, that sounds great. So what advice would you give to someone who's interested in entering the field of adventure ed? What do you tell your students, or what are your thoughts about that? Um, any words of wisdom?
My first, I think the hardest, the word adventure can be
Mhm.
very, it connotes this big, high risk adventure, right? That rock climbing, sky,
Whitewater rafting.
whitewater rafting, right?
Right.
But I told this story to a student or to someone a few weeks ago about my first job working with the Girl Scouts and how I had a bunch of daisies and I was doing some games and activities with them. And the daisies are the little ones, they're younger than brownies. And I asked them, I said, we're going on an adventure. Who can tell me what an adventure is? And they were all yelling, skydiving, whitewater rafting, all this stuff that was just like high risk outdoor adventure. And this one little girl over in the side yelled, reading a book. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I think it's helping people identify that an adventure, Carl Ronke describes it as any activity where the outcome is uncertain.
Hmm.
So, if we approached our day every day as an adventure, right? Or because you don't know where it's gonna go. You could have a
Right.
schedule, but you don't know where you're gonna land at the end of the day. And so every day really is an adventure. The side note is when I went back to teach in the fall after working with the Daisies, I asked my first year students what an adventure was, and they all gave me the same answers as the Daisies did at the Girl Scout camp. And I was just taken back, like, well, what have we done to make 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds think adventure is all this high risk activity? You
Hmm.
know, play in and of itself, it should be an adventure.
That's interesting. I wonder how much, the TV and social media has come into play,
Exactly.
along those lines to make them think that. But that's interesting. So let me get this quote correct. So adventure is any activity where the outcome is uncertain, right?
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
And I think it was Carl Ronke that told me that one time. And Carl worked for Project Adventure for quite a while, and then up at High Five Adventure in Brattleboro, Vermont.
Hmm.
Uh, just a really good mentor and friend. And he was the one that really, I think, one of the early people that shaped my thoughts about using adventure, um, not just in physical education, but in all my teaching.
That's great. Veach, anything to add or?
I think the what was the question about giving advice to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what would you tell a newcomer or somebody new to the field, possibly your student or somebody thinking about going down this adventure track?
I think try to diversify the network,
Hmm.
right? Attend conferences, attend um different seminars, anything where you're not just restricted into like one specific uh you know educational setting. I
Hmm.
think conferences are really important because you're bringing people from different areas, different institutions, different fields that
Hmm.
can show how transferable some of this content is.
Hmm.
So I think if anything, we try to encourage our folks to attend those, you know, just to start to network, to see what else is out there. Of course we want to keep some of them near and dear to us,
Right.
but you know, when it comes time for practicum or internships and things like that, it would be easy for them to just kind of stick around here. And
Yeah.
we always say, or, one of the things that I always am telling them, like, easy works, but be better. And
Right.
being better is sometimes stretching your own comfort zone
Hmm.
and checking out a different organization, because they could be doing things that's different from other people that you find align more with kind of your own passions and vision of your future. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
if you don't take those risks, how are you going to gain that insight to be able to kind of identify those pros and cons?
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, I imagine it builds the students' perspectives too when they're listening, going to these conferences and listening to who's ever giving the talk or the speech or presenting. They're getting a lot of different information, and it's again opening up their minds and broadening their perspectives. You mentioned internships and practicums. Do you want to talk a little bit about where your students have gone in the past, or some of the things that your institution offers as far as practicums or internships?
So, I mean, it depends on their major. So our
Got it.
physical
Okay.
education students obviously all do student teaching.
Hmm.
Majority of them are in Massachusetts, in the Northeast. So we place students all over. Uh, we have another set of students that are in our movement and sports studies major, which tends to be more coaching and sport leadership.
Hmm.
So they're looking for careers in collegiate coaching, athletics offices. Little different than sport management because it's geared towards academic settings. They want to go
Right.
into intercollegiate, interscholastic
Right.
athletics. And we place students. I mean, I've got in the last year, the University of Albany football team. I've had students at the women's lacrosse team at AIC. A lot of the high schools in our area. Cole's just finishing up with Wilbraham Hamden School District,
Hmm.
doing an athletic administration. I don't know. I think he's not coaching right now. He's just working with the athletic director. Um, we place others that are at camps. We have one student, Hayden, who is finishing up. He's been to one camp already, and he's going to go to another resident camp now, I hope, to finish up his field work.
That's great. So it depends on the major, and then
Yeah.
once we that's solidified, they go wherever there's interest and wherever the people can take them, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, for employment wise, I mean, it's all over the map. I think some of our students are again landing full-time athletic director jobs in larger school districts, or they're continuing on for a master's degree. If they want to coach in higher ed and at the collegiate level,
Mhm.
they're going to need a master's degree.
Right.
So a lot of them may go coach for a year and then come back and get a master's degree. Our undergraduates tend to, that's what prompted us sort of to start thinking about an online adventure education master's degree,
Hmm.
is that we had alumni who were going out teaching, and they were calling us and telling us like we want to do something online, but we don't want to lose the hands-on learning
Hmm.
that you often lose in an online program. So that's when Angela and I sat down and we really started talking about, well, what could we build out in a master's degree? And we're using professional development workshops with our partners so that a student can go and take some hands-on workshop, get credit, grad credit with us,
Mhm.
and then take online classes to sort of build on that experience. And that really the program came out of the feedback from a lot of our alumni.
Interesting. So you have a full online program now for Adventure Ed, or to get, is it a certification program, or is it to get like PDs for once they're teaching?
Nope, it's I'll let Angela talk a little more
Yeah.
about it, but
Well, that sounds.
it's a master's degree
Hmm.
in adventure education. It's 30
Wow.
credits, and it's designed for in-service physical education teachers who already have a teaching license, to gain professional status,
Hmm.
or it might be somebody with a master's degree. We made it so you can break it into two certificates, 15 credits and 30 credits. So
Interesting.
you can get you obviously you can do your plus 15 or your plus 30 with it. And you can combine up to 9 credits of professional development that we work with certain vendors
Hmm.
that provide workshops. And then what we do is we audit those workshops and we can award credit.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really Angela, share a little bit more about it.
Well, I think you did a really great job. Again, I think that one of the things is just noticing that there was a little bit of a gap, and we felt that with the history of the institution and being, well known with with physical education, that was something that we could, fill. And so we kind of spent a year researching content out there and building it off of knowing that folks would be probably working professionals. So, having them take 2 years off to get a master's degree just wasn't going to probably benefit some of the people.
Hmm.
So, again, like Ted said, 24 credits are asynchronous classes, with 9 being added for that professional development. And really what we want to be doing is just supporting, you know, the career trajectory of an individual, right? Like, those 9 credits are there to complement, their passions.
Right.
And, again, making sure that anything's vetted out. We have 2 strategic providers currently with High Five Adventure Learning Center and then Experiential Tools with Jen Stanchfield to provide some of that. But it is in its kind of infancy stage, and something that we've gotten some good feedback from our current students, and something that we feel very passionate about is, if you choose to come here, is that we're going to support you throughout those 2 years or however long it takes. So trying to be really available to these students, despite it being an asynchronous kind of platform.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that's so important to the support that they receive throughout this process. Instead of just, kind of providing and saying go, so they,
Yeah.
so are we talking office hours and online support and different people who maybe been through the program? Are they kind of supporting as well? Or is.
Yeah, I mean, I have, so it's kind of interesting. In my head, when I first started teaching the online classes, I
Mhm.
saw myself having office hours where students could email, call me and Zoom meeting me.
Mhm.
And what I learned quickly is I've got 20 students in class, there's 20 different schedules.
Got it.
And
Right.
and sometimes those office hours didn't match.
Mhm.
So while I think the majority, while I have a block set of time, I usually end up doing grading and emailing students back in that blocks at a time, but it's the one-off conversations that I need to be available for.
Right.
It can get unwieldy. as somebody who's never taught online before, you could do it 24 hours a day. It's almost, I told Veach, it's like doom scrolling in some ways where I'm like looking at my email, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, there's another email from another student.
Well, like you said, there's 20 of them, and they all have their own schedules. So it's
And
got,
they
yeah,
get you outnumbered. The ants
right,
outnumber the grasshoppers. They definitely, they
right.
get you outnumbered for sure. But what I found is
Mm,
it's still, it still meets their need for the social dynamic. It's not, if it was just an asynchronous class online, we would lose, it would be so content driven, that I'd lose that connection. And as a teacher, I think I would struggle with that if I
mm,
lost that social connection. So I've gotten to know a lot of our students a little bit deeper because I'm in my second class with them now. I'm
got it.
starting to know what to expect, and they feel more comfortable reaching out to me, I think, as well. And sometimes it's a 5-minute Zoom meeting,
Right.
that's all it takes.
That's all you need, though, right? Just that
Right,
conversation. Like, yeah.
right.
So that's interesting. So, Veach and Ted, what are some goals you have for the future? What would you like to see? This could be either professional or personal. Either one of you can go first. What hopes do you have for the future? It could either be for the college or
Beach, you want to go first? You go first.
Well, I think just in general is to continue to increase the awareness of how important experiential learning is. How much growth can, happen within an individual. To build out an experiential curriculum is hard. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of effort and time, but the end result, to the benefits that your students would gain from having that experience, you know, I think far outweighs the effort that you got to put in on the front end, right?
Right, right.
And so I think, as folks that, we believe in that philosophy, and we believe that the importance of it, and to keep trying to, like, our goal is obviously to get this master degree, up and, out there, so that we can kind of continue that we
Mhm.
can try to reach more people to be able to deliver this in a way that serves, their future aspirations. Again, oftentimes, like, developing that is scary for people because they don't have the tools, or they don't understand how to make content. um like, we're just used to, like, here's the, that didactic teaching,
Mhm.
here it is up on a screen, you take the notes, I tell you what it is.
Right.
And so we can try to continue to cultivate, these, despite it being an online classroom, it's kind of like, like, it sounds wrong to say, but I still think that there's a lot of potential within it, that they can walk out of that experience thinking that they can deliver some quality content that will benefit their own students. So it's just kind of a ripple effect,
Mhm.
and to continue to hope that phones, in these outdoor settings and all of that, can kind of be put to the side, and that we can continue to encourage folks to build connections, build relationships, learn how to do some of these life skills that will serve them better, as they grow and develop.
That's great. Well said. I could definitely tell the passion when you both speak about your roles and your jobs, and you've done a lot of work. I can only imagine, developing, the courses, writing the curriculums, teaching these students. But something you both said is that stood out with me is the relationships that you're building with the students, but also having them help, having them build with other people as well through your approach, of adventure education. So that's
You
really
know,
awesome.
I was going to answer you when you asked the question, like, what are my hopes for the future
Hmm.
in education? You both just said the word. Like, we've been on a search in education for, I don't know, gosh, what, 100 years, looking, is there a silver bullet? Like, what makes teaching and learning more effective?
Hmm.
And for the last 10 years, I've been doing some research on relationship development between adult mentors and youth, coaches and youth, teachers and youth. And if there is a silver bullet, it's the high quality relationship that's developed between a significant adult role model
Hmm.
and a youth. That if that youth believes that the teacher understands who they are, that's the first step.
Right.
Because then the second step is the teacher helps that youth set high positive expectations for themselves. And then the last step is the teacher becomes an advocate to open up new doors into new experiences to that youth member. And that if a teacher or coach does those three things, then all the other things happen. The kids go to school more frequently, their grade point averages go up, they graduate on time, they're more productive in careers or in college. It's so I can't tell you how important that developmental relationship is. And I was lucky enough, I wrote an article in Jopert a long while back now, on a program that I was running. And we did this with over 4,000 kids in the program, and they all told us the same thing, that it was a relationship they had with that adult mentor. Take all the other instructional strategies out of it, take all the content out of it, whether it's sport or golf or adventure education. The dream here is that maybe we need to become more relationship based in our teaching. And that's, we can't do that for every kid. If I've got 100 students, 200 students, I'd be exhausted emotionally by the end of it.
Right.
But how do we at least demonstrate empathy to our students? If we can just do that, then they're more likely to buy in and believe we're there to help them.
Right. You got to start somewhere. And I love how you outline the steps. And if I'm not mistaken, you have to do those steps in order, right? You can't have step three before you get to step one.
You
Right?
got it, man. Because
So,
if you try to help a student set high positive expectations before empathy,
right.
that would be like me coming up to you and we just met and I pat you on the back and I tell you, hey, don't worry. I know you're having a hard day, but everything's going to be all right. You'd look at me and be like, how many times has a student said, you don't know who I am?
Right.
You don't know what I'm about. You don't know what I'm going through.
Hmm.
Well, that's because the empathy wasn't built before you said it's going to be okay. There's no trust.
Hmm.
So I think, to me, that hope, and when we talk about some of the courses, is the reason I can talk about this so well. Don't tell my students. This is what we just went over last week in class, Angela. So,
What's
so
fresh on the mind?
it's fresh on the mind, and I've been doing a little research in it over the last 10 years. But it's just, I can't believe how important it is, for achievement.
Well, you said it well. Relationships, are so important. So, Veach and Ted, are there any ways our listeners can connect with you? Either on, I don't know what you're on, either email or Blue Sky or anything of that nature? And if not, that's fine too. It's
I'm on Twitter. Does that count?
yeah, of course, yeah, Twitter.
Actually, it's not Twitter anymore, is it?
No, it's X. It's X. I know I have to get used to that too. But if you want to email me that, I can put it in the show notes. Because I'm sure our listeners are going to have a lot of questions. It's been really interesting talking to you both about your experiences and your insight and your expertise in your field. So,
Jake, you're going to have to come to a live show from the outdoor center.
Yeah.
I'd love that. I'd love
Yeah.
that.
Seriously, we got
Jake,
to get you out and do a live show from East Campus.
We should
Jake,
definitely do that.
we'll send you the link to the website for the Adventure Ed, and that also has my email on there as well.
Okay, yeah, and so that'll be perfect. Then I'll link it. I'll link it up after, just in case anybody has any questions. So, well, I can't thank you enough, Professor Veach, Professor um uh Vance. How do I say it, Vance?
Ted,
Ted. All right, Professor Ted. I was trying to get your last name. You really expanded my mind, I think our listeners' mind. It's been a pleasure talking with you both. If you have any questions, just email us at mayfordpodcast@gmail.com. We'll have this episode uploaded soon. And we're also asking our listeners to just leave a review, a like, and a retweet, as that way other folks can access the podcast as well. It's easier for them. So thank you both again. I appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. Have a great week. We will be back soon.
Thank you.
thank you.